Hi, everyone. I'm Wiley Blevins. I'm an author and editorial director at Reycraft Books, and I want to welcome you back to our Reycraft Read Alouds. Today, I have chosen a nonfiction book. I am a lover of informational text. I write a lot of informational text. When I was your age, my favorite books were nonfiction books. And the one that I'm going to read to you today is called Spotted Tail. Hope you can see that. It is by David Heska Wambly Wyden, who is tribally enrolled in the Lakota Sicangu Nation, and it is illustrated by Jim Yellowhawk and Pat Kinsella. Jim Yellowhawk is also tribally enrolled in the Lakota Nation, and this was the first book that I published with the Reycraft Books imprint, so it's a very special book for me, and I hope that you enjoyed. I'm just going to read a couple parts because it's a very long book. I hope that you will have a chance to then go to your library and read the rest of it if you're interested. And at the end, I have a special surprise for you. We're going to watch a very short video where we will meet the author, David Heska Wambly Wyden. So enjoy Spotted Tail. Early years. The buffalo herd raced across the plains, kicking up clouds of dust and soil. There were hundreds of them, all running at full speed away from the hunters. The sound of their hooves echoed like giants stomping across the land. Young Spotted Tail looked over at his father, who sat atop his favorite horse. This was the first time Spotted Tail had been allowed to join the hunters, and he wanted to make sure he didn't make any mistakes. His father waved to him, telling him to join the group of riders behind the buffalo. The best horseman rode in the middle of the herd, guiding them to the buffalo jump, which was a steep cliff where most of the animals would fall to their death. Then the tribe would gather at the bottom of the canyon to collect all the dead bison to use for food, clothing, and tools. The buffalo ran harder and harder, trying to escape from the hunters, but they didn't see the cliff right ahead. Spotted Tail watched the hunters pull back their horses, and the bison raced off the cliff. It was almost as if they could fly. Spotted Tail's people would now have the food they needed for the long winter. Spotted Tail hoped he would be allowed to join in the next buffalo hunt, proudly riding next to his father and his friends. This was the world that Spotted Tail knew. He was born in 1823 on the White River in South Dakota. His parents were both Lakota Indians. The Lakotas are sometimes called the Sioux. There are 7 groups or bands of Lakotas. They're like cousins. Spotted Tail lived with a band of Lakotas known as the Sicangu. The name comes from a scary event a long time ago when a large fire raged on the prairie, and the Sicangu people had to leap through the flames to escape. Most of the tribe burned their legs while running through the fire, and ever since then, they have been called the Sicangu, or burned thigh people. Today, many Sicangu Lakota live on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Spotted Tail's name in the Lakota language is Sinte Gleshka. However, Spotted Tail's first name was actually Jumping Buffalo. One of the traditions of the Lakota people is that men and women are given different names throughout their lives. For example, a person can earn a new name if he or she performs a great act of bravery. A French trapper who had captured a raccoon to eat helped give Spotted Tail his name. The raccoon's tail had black rings around it, and Jumping Buffalo liked it, so the trapper gave it to him. Jumping Buffalo carried the raccoon's tail everywhere he went. Jumping Buffalo loved the tail so much that he was given the new name of Spotted Tail. In his early years, Spotted Tail grew up like other Native American boys. He learned how to hunt, how to play games, and how to show respect to his elders. There was no school for children in those days. Instead, Lakota boys and girls learned from their families and from older citizens in the community. The kids learned how to act and behave as a Lakota person. The children learned about the important Lakota virtues. The first of these was silence, which meant that a young child should not speak to his elders unless he had something important to say. Another important character trait was generosity. Lakota children were taught to reject the love of possessions, and so all people were encouraged to give away many of their belongings to those in need. So as Spotted Tail grew up, he became a very important warrior in his nation. At that time, there were people coming in to settle on Native American lands. And so there was a lot of conflict between the Native Americans and those people who were trying to settle on their lands, killing their buffalo, and so on. So this was a time of tremendous conflict between those two groups. And you'll see here through the illustrations that things didn't go so well for Spotted Tail. And there were some very difficult times ahead. A lot of Sicangu Lakota were killed in the process. But as time went on, Spotted Tail became the chief of his nation. And as he got older, things began to change in the United States. And there were schools that were started for Native American children. And I want to read to you that section of this book because I think you'll find it really interesting. Spotted Tail loved all of his children very much, and he wanted them to learn to speak English as well as study Lakota traditions. Captain Richard Henry Pratt asked Spotted Tail if his children could be educated at a new school for Native kids, the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, located in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. The school was supposed to be a new way to teach and educate Native American children. The students would be taken hundreds of miles away from their families and taught how to succeed in American society. Spotted Tail agreed to let 4 of his sons and 2 of his grandchildren travel all the way to Pennsylvania to attend the school. 1 year later, Spotted Tail traveled to Pennsylvania to visit his children at the school. When he got there, what he discovered about the education the Native American children were receiving shocked and angered him. The kids were not being taught how to read and write in English, but were being trained in farm work and house cleaning. Even worse, the children were forbidden to speak their native languages or practice their spirituality. He had trusted that the teachers at the new school would educate all the children in English, math, and other subjects. He argued with Captain Pratt about the way Native American children were being treated at the Carlisle school. Pratt refused to make any changes. So Spotted Tail took all of his family back with him to South Dakota. Unfortunately, the Carlisle Indian School remained open for a long time, and other schools sprang up throughout the US and Canada. Many young Native children were forcibly taken from their families to these schools, where they were not allowed to learn about their culture. Some of these children were badly mistreated. It wasn't until 1978 that American Indian parents were given the right to stop their children from being taken to these schools. How would you feel if you were taken from your family and sent to a school where you weren't allowed to learn about your culture or practice your religion? These 2 pages are really important to me because you see all of the photographs here are before and after pictures. They show Native American children before they were sent to these Native American Indian schools like the Carlisle Indian School, and then after they attended these. And you'll see the change, how their culture was really stripped away from them, the way they dressed, the way they spoke, the way they practiced their religion. It's a very sad moment in our country's history, and I think it's important that we know about this. So, like I said, Spotted Tail went on to be a leader in the Lakota Nation until a very fateful day. The Lakota buried Spotted Tail on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota, the land that he worked so hard to save and protect for his people. In 1971, Sinte Gleshka University, named in his honor, was founded on the reservation to educate American Indian students. Chief Spotted Tail was remembered as a great man, a man who loved his people and worked hard for them. He was brave and not afraid to fight, but he also recognized the value of diplomacy and compromise. Most importantly, he always put the good of his community first. And David, the author, has added some really interesting back matter in this book. You can learn about some really important Lakota customs like the giveaways and spirit name. I think you'll be interested in both of those. And he also gives a very short history of the Lakota people, including the very important role that they have played in the US military. A lot of Native Americans have served in our country's military. You've probably heard about the code talkers and so on, and we thank them for all that they've done, all of their service in the military. So now I want you to meet David. This is a brief interview that I did with him. It's just like about a minute and a half, and it's a video that we make with our authors when a book comes out. We send it to librarians so that they get a sense of what our book is about, and hopefully they will decide to put it in their school's library. Now, this is a very short interview. I have a much longer interview. It's about 15 minutes long, and David talks about some fascinating aspects of the Lakota Nation and the story of Spotted Tail, who is a distant relative of his. So if you would like to see the entire interview, just write me, let me know, and I will be happy to post that on YouTube, on the Reycraft Books channel. So let's listen to a little bit of the interview. Enjoy.
Everybody knows who Crazy Horse is. Everybody knows who Sitting Bull is, or Geronimo. But they don't know about Spotted Tail.
Spotted Tail, a picture book for older readers, and named one of AICL's best books of 2019. Publishers Weekly writes, throughout this detailed biography of Spotted Tail, author Wyden links conflicts from the Lakota warrior and mediator's time to the present day.
Spotted Tail was one of the first American Indians to say we should strive for peace rather than fight to the very end. I would argue that Spotted Tail actually was one of the more realistic leaders to come in and say, look, let's try and all get along, and let's try and make peace so that we can live together in harmony.
The combined efforts of artists Jim Yellowhawk and Pat Kinsella, especially the many dramatic two-page spreads, make Spotted Tail visually striking.
Ledger art is a technique used by many American Indian artists to draw pictures on ledgers from the 1800s. And so, in a sense, what it does is it unites the past and the present in this truly wonderful visual medium. And this is one of the few, if not the only, kids book that I'm aware of, Native kids book, that uses ledger art in such a wonderful way. It really is a dream of my life to bring the story of Spotted Tail, who is a distant relative of mine, to bring his story to children, both Native and non-Native.
I hope you'll check out this and other Reycraft book titles. Reycraft Books is an imprint dedicated to publishing books by authors and illustrators from underrepresented groups. We support diversity in the First Amendment and celebrate the right to read. Please go to www.reycraftbooks.com. There you'll also find interviews with some of our authors and illustrators. Enjoy! So thank you for joining me today for our read aloud, and I hope to see you again for our next Reycraft Books read aloud. Have a great day, everyone.